This is 757 Saturday Sports Talk. Here are Matt Hatfield and Coach Ed Young.
Good Saturday morning to all of you out there. It is now the month of June. We've put May behind us. We think, we hope, maybe, we'll find out. And we are on with you on this first June 2024 edition of 757 Saturday Sports Talk on Cova Sports TV, powered by all the great folks from Hometown Sports Productions. If you're not familiar with their show, we're coming up on our one-year anniversary in terms of podcasts. We did this on radio for about a dozen plus years. You can like, share, subscribe to us on YouTube and Cova Sports TV. You'll get notifications when we go live with anything through the folks at the Virginia Beach Sportsplex, let it be with football, lacrosse, VBU, like soccer last night, field hockey, football, lacrosse, anything, you name it, our podcasts, our special editions. We did a mock NFL draft. We'll do a mock NBA draft, I'm sure, and all kinds of goodies for all of you out there. We're on Apple and Spotify, X or 757 Sports Talk, on Twitter, as some still call it, Facebook, VirginiaPreps.com. We're all over the web. I am Matt Hatfield, publisher of VirginiaPreps.com, part of the Rivals Network powered by Yahoo Sports. The other guy is the coach known as Edward Young, sometimes known as Edward Vincent Young, sometimes known as Edward V as in victory, 5 forever Young. And we are all with you today as we talk everything in the world of sports. Good morning, sir. I see you got your New York Yankees shirt on, and you're proud that Aaron Judge hit 2 dingers, and you're also happy that we're going to have later on the show, supposed to have later on in the show, Tim Kurkjian, ESPN MLB analyst, to join us to talk some baseball. And it's that time of year. We've got spring sports happening. We've got all kinds of goodies. We got state championships. We got some other special guests like James Clark of 757 Hampton Roads Soccer Chat joining us, and Chris Monter, who accidentally overslept last week. We'll give him a pass. He was at the Timberwolves Nuggets game. He'll talk some NBA finals with us. So it's a jam-packed show. I'll stop talking and let you get a chance to tell the folks what in the world we watched to begin this show, because I have no idea what that was. It looked like you were at some kind of concert or show to celebrate your Memorial Day. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. The professor greets all. Yeah, that was at a local venue. They don't sponsor us, so I can't tell you who it is. It was at and you won't know who this is, Tank concert, not Army Tanks, R&B music icon Tank. And if you notice, there was a million women there. That's the kind of concert it is. Yeah,
that's what you go to, a place that has a million women, and then you send them all scattering everywhere. That's how it generally works with you.
It was a fruitful night.
A fruitful night.
Yes.
Oh, nice words there. Fruitful. That will not be, by the way, a word we will use later on in our spelling bee. Yeah, that's right, ladies and germs. I'll let Ed continue his story in just a moment. We're going to do our latest spelling bee on the heels of Bharat Sama. I probably butchered that poor young fellow's name. Was it a young lady? I don't know.
Brock Lesnar?
No, Bharat, a 12-year-old 7th grader from Tampa, Florida, Bharat Sama, who blitzed through 30 words in 90 seconds on his way. It is a he, by the way, on his way to a championship in the Scripps National Spelling Bee in Oxon Hill, Maryland this past Thursday. So we'll see what Ed Young can do in a spelling bee. We will not give him any words that those youngsters had to spell, because we'd be here all day. We'll give them easier sports names to spell. How about that? But go ahead with your concert with Tank.
Oh, it was last Saturday night.
Not Frank the Tank, by the way. Go ahead.
Frank the Tank. No, this would not be a place for Frank the Tank, because he would just go off. As soon as he'd be listening to his Mets in his ear, and they'd blow another 9.9-run lead, and he'd just be going off.
I need him to blow a lead against my Diamondbacks, but continue.
But no, it's just a good evening of some great music, and it is a concert where there were guys there. There was a few was there, but it was mostly groups of women, like partners or in fours, and because that's the kind of music he plays, it kind of lends itself. There was Carl Thomas and Carrie Hilston were the other two performers who they didn't really excite me in terms of their music, because I didn't hear much of their music. So, but anyways, it was a good Saturday night.
Interesting. We'll leave your activities from Memorial Day weekend now to the side and go into some more prevalent matters And that has to do with what's on deck for the sports weekend. We talked about last week the hot dog eating contest and Indy 500 and the Coca-Cola 600. I don't know if you watched any of those things. But before we can do all of that, Ed, though, we do have to remember someone that we just lost this past week in the world of sports. I know you have some words about him, and that was a guy who didn't just love his bike in his hometown of San Diego and the Conference of Champions, but it seemed like everything in life, and he lived it full of zest. Born in 1952 in La Mesa, California, had a legendary career at UCLA, and then played in the NBA with the Portland Trailblazers, won a championship in 1977. That team that he led to the title, coached by the late, great Jack Ramsey, with teammates like Lionel Hollins and Maurice Lucas and Dave Twardzik, who we've had on before from Old Dominion fame. And we're talking about Bill Walton, who we lost this past week at the age of 71. He was fighting cancer, kept it quiet, which he didn't keep a lot of things quiet, which is such an interesting way that he lived his life. He was one that had a stuttering problem, didn't talk at all, and then we couldn't get him to stop talking as he became a sportscaster and follow that up in a legendary way. And some people in this profession do that. They're legendary players or coaches, and then they become legendary broadcasters. Names that come to mind, certainly like the late, great John Madden. We're watching one now in basketball with Charles Barkley, and Bill Walton comes to mind as well, like that, because he was a unique character in every which way you could describe it. Well, William Theodore Walton III passing away at the age of 71 last Monday. Your thoughts? I was stunned by the news because I had no idea that he was ill.
I think most people were. He didn't lead on his broadcast, anything wrong. He didn't miss, to my knowledge, broadcast because of sickness. He just went about it, and then all of a sudden gone. And it hit hard because, it's one of those type of sport characters you kind of think is going to live forever. He was a tremendous player. I think the effort he gave against Memphis State, now University of Memphis, and the NCAA tournament, where he hit, I think was it 22 of 23 shots, something. He only missed one shot.
44 points.
And he made every shot imaginable by a big man. Every single shot. I can almost remember if it was just yesterday. And I met him briefly at one of the Final Fours. I think it was the first one I went to in Indianapolis. We might have been there broadcasting or just hanging out. And it was in a room. There was a reception, coach's reception. He was in there. And he was just standing there. Of course, everybody's talking to him. But then there was a brief moment standing there. I went up to him. I said, Bill, just mention my name. I was coach, whatever. And he smiled and he gave like a big pat on the back, like, go forward. Like, I'm just thinking he's just going to say, hey, how you doing? And keep it moving. And he said, oh, yeah, where your coach at? And I told him that. And I said, I just want to let you know that performance you did in the NCAA tournament, to me, is the single greatest basketball achievement I've ever seen, especially as a coach, because you made every big man shot that's imaginable that you would teach. You did it, except one thing I didn't think he did was a three-pointer, because they didn't have three-pointers, I think, at that point. But made just a legendary player and had a good NBA career, but injuries derailed it. And he's never, ever mentioned in best big man around because more of the injuries. He was probably the most sound, fundamental big man. The only comparison would be Tim Duncan in terms of how they played.
Well, I think he's the best passer we've seen ever, and the closest now is Nikola Jokic for the Nuggets. But do you agree with what Dave Twardzik said this week, that he believes Wilt Chamberlain's the greatest player ever? And some will say, is it Bill Russell as far as greatest winner, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? People get into Michael, LeBron, Kobe, all that discussion about the GOAT and all that. But that's for another time. You're right. Walton's probably a top 10 center of all time. He'd be easily top 5 with those guys, probably at the worst right there with Shaq and Olajuwon and Robinson and Ewing and some of those guys, Moses Malone. But he felt like if it wasn't for the injuries, Walton would have been the second greatest big man ever, only behind Wilt. And I do think it's debatable to a degree, but fairly, to me, not that arguable. There's a lot of great college players of all time. You think of David Thompson at NC State, keeping UCLA from completing that last year championship. You think of Christian Laettner at Duke. You think of Oscar Robertson. You think of Bill Russell at University of San Francisco. But to me, 1-2, it's Kareem and Walton as the two greatest college players of all time.
Yeah, Walton's college career much more highlighted his NBA career, and truthness. Walton is much more fundamentally sound than Shaquille. Patrick Ewing, Akeem Olajuwon. I dare say Bill Russell. I could almost, because I'm a Wilt Chamberlain guy, and I think I don't think he's the greatest player ever. I think he's the most dominant. Michael Jordan is my greatest player ever. But Bill Walton is in those kind of conversations. It's just he didn't have a long career because of the injuries. And he was the best passing big man I've ever seen, including Wilt, who led the NBA in assists for 1 year. I think he's the only true center to ever lead the NBA in assists. But Walton was it's just fundamentally sound under the tutelage of John Wooden at UCLA. And he became a really good broadcaster. Now, you had to put up with his Grateful Dead stuff and his antics, his hippiness, but that's Bill Walton. That's what made Walton the individual he was off the floor, and drove John Wooden nuts at times. And John Wooden kind of put clamps on Walton, but it was because of his stuttering. He didn't want the media to rip him apart or let people think, well, this goofy big guy can't even speak. Had nothing to do with that. It's just a stuttering issue. And like I said, I grown to know him as a broadcaster, and I do think he became one of those sport personalities, athletes, or former coaches, as you mentioned, who became very good in the broadcast booth. One of the names you forgot is Hubie Brown, who I think is a tremendous coach, who I think now at age 80-something, if I'm not mistaken, he's still broadcasting.
Oh, yeah, he's great, no doubt. No, great. Although Hubie is more of the insightful coach analysis. I'm thinking of larger-than-life personalities, which Madden, Barkley, and Walton were. So it's almost like you can couch it in a different way. But yeah, Hubie's a Hall of Famer in every sense. He was a really great coach, and he's a terrific analyst, even at the age of 90 now. But
and Hubie's not one to try to make you laugh. Walton could do that. Mad could do that. Just being themselves. Yeah. Hubie being himself is, like you said, his insight on the game is ridiculous. It's so good. But Walton is that type that you could laugh with if you understood where he was, and he's so personable and gracious to people that when I heard all the tributes on the radio to him, that's what people said about him. He made you feel like you were important, and he gave you time. It wasn't like a brush off. And like I said, when I met him in a brief period of time where so many were trying to get him, and it wasn't a brush off. It was a few minutes of conversation where he's asking me questions about coaching and where you at, and how is it coaching them youngsters. I bet sometimes it's hard that they listen, stuff like that. And I'm like, man, I was just here to say one thing to you and move on. But he's a good dude. He was a good dude, and we lost, as I always say, a pillar in our business, basketball world, a pillar.
We really did. Rest in peace to the late, great Bill Walton. As we paid tribute to him on this morning, just literally hard to believe 5 days after his passing. Coming up, though, we've got some special guests. You heard Tim Kurkjian is scheduled to join us around 10:30 Eastern this morning. We'll be talking with Chris Monter, the Monter Draft News, college basketball news, the brainchild of that. But when we return here on 757 Saturday Sports Talk on Cova Sports TV, you see it on our screen right there. James Clark from 757 Hampton Roads Soccer Chat will join us to discuss the VHSL tournament. We got some boys and girls soccer teams moving on. Interesting teams on the girls' side and boys' side. I know we got some beach squads like First Colonial and Kellum marching on the ladies' side. We'll dive into all of that with him, players and teams to watch for, maybe some fearless predictions too here as we talk to you about the soccer scene, as we spoke with you last week on baseball. If you missed any of that with our guest, you can find that up there on our Cova Sports TV YouTube channel. Jason Burton, the scouting director of Prep Baseball Report, was kind of join us and give us some insight on those teams. So a lot happening, a lot cooking on this first day of June, but we're going to take a time out and hear from some of the sponsors and folks that make it possible for us to do this with you each and every Saturday from January and February into March and April, when we were at the state tournament for basketball in Richmond at VCU Siegel Center, and into April and then into May, and now June, July, August, the dog days of summer here on 757 Saturday Sports Talk. And let's now hear from some of those that make it possible, including One Life and Town Bank, back in just a bit right here on Cova Sports TV.
Get ready for a season of thrills and excitement. Virginia Beach United invites you to experience the adrenaline of USL League 2 Pro Soccer. Tickets are only $10 for adults, $7 for kids, and children 5 and under are free. It's the perfect family outing filled with fun and entertainment. Secure your seats now for a season of unforgettable soccer moments with Virginia Beach United. Don't miss out.
I grew up here. I know this town. I know the people here. More important, they know me. As a banker at Town Bank, we become part of the communities we serve. The people who bank with us, our members, know us. When you bank with Town Bank, you'll know your banker. You'll know you can reach us, and you'll know we're here for you.
Breaks. He does not need a little chair because he is a giant in a world of shriveling midgets. And speaking of shriveling midgets, what was your name again?
What is wrong? The first half, Arizona State.
I'm guilty of having fun in Las Vegas. Fun with a purpose. In the first half stats, 3-point shooting. Arizona State comes out on fire. That's the first possession of the game. Des Cambridge, time is on his side. And then Frankie Collins, oh my gosh, not related to Jackie Collins, but close. And Desmond just kept coming. But the challenge, okay, the Audi first half stats.
I don't know what you consumed at halftime. Audi first half stats.
This is 757 Saturday Sports Talk. Here are Matt Hatfield and Coach Ed Young.
And back here on 757 Saturday Sports Talk, like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're all over the web, Apple, Spotify, Facebook, Twitter, X, Virginia Preps, and IG2. You can find this guy on IG2 at 757 Soccer Chat. You see it right there on our screen. James Clark joining us here as he's on the road today covering some playoff action in soccer. James, thanks for stopping by. We spoke to you about a little more than a month ago, almost 2 months ago. How's life treating you? And you got to be pumped. Good time of year. We get to see some champions crowned and some outstanding athletes recognized for their hard work.
Absolutely, gentlemen. It's awesome to be here on the show with you guys again. I appreciate the time again. Ed, I'm gonna go to you first. I appreciate the shirt. Once again, it's another team that I rep that Matt needs to know more about and needs to cheer on more.
No, James.
This is your last.
Don't waste your breath. He'll bring up Arizona World Series from 1888 or whatever.
No, 2001. Best World Series ever. Game 7, Luis Gonzalez bloop single over Jeter's head, and Jay Bell scores to send everybody into pandemonium. At least everybody was rooting for the good guys, not the bad guys.
There's no need. We do bets where I have to either wear a suits or Arizona stuff, things that are too small for me, but he'll never see him in a Yankee gear because
heavens no.
Yeah, he doesn't know what it's like to win consistent. So
listen, when Judge had that first blast last night, I said, "Oh gosh, I know what's coming tomorrow. You're going to hear all kinds of Ed, the best team ever."
And here it is, James. I haven't said a word about the game last night. I just got my Yankee shirt on, okay? Because he wears Arizona.
See, I'm going bald. I'm losing the hair of this guy.
Arizona, he should not be embarrassed. They are the best AAA team in the history of AAA baseball.
Wow.
I don't know why he gets upset.
Norfolk Tides thought they were up there last year. Listen to you.
I was at the Tide game last night.
Oh, it didn't invite me. See how he operates, James? Doesn't invite me.
But James, you got to give us the info on. Where are we at in the soccer? Are we in the state tournament championship, heading that way? Where are we at?
So we have just finished up, as of last night, all of the region championships. We are now at the state quarterfinal level. The quarterfinals will take place on June 4th across the state of Virginia. And then the semifinals will all be on the 7th. And then the finals will all be on this coming Saturday, the 8th. The area that we cover as far as for me and for 757 Soccer Chat and a lot of our local folks, we have 20 different teams going to the state tournament across all levels from 1A all the way to 6A. And that's 7 different regions worth of high schools. So a lot of action a ton of players and a ton of teams who deserve the recognition. I've been shouting them out all week on my Instagram at 757_soccer_chat. Huge matchups and some genuine history happening along the way. Lafayette ladies, I'll start with them. They have gone 16 matches without conceding a single goal all season on the way to the 3A region title. They have been my number one ladies team the entire season from day one. Norview Pilots, they were featured on a number of different mediums. They've made the state tournament for the first time, so the Eastern District is represented by someone who isn't Maury or Granby at the state level. Maury ladies, however, did make it back to the state tournament again for the second year in a row. And then probably the biggest match over the course of this past 2 weeks for the region championships was the Kellam and Great Bridge matchup a couple days ago at Ocean Lakes High School. It went through 4 overtimes. It saw 3 red cards, and it finished in a penalty shootout where the first 19 shots were made, and then Griffin Thomas came up with a big save for the Wildcats to send them back to the state championships, this time in 5A instead of like 4A as they did 2 years ago.
That's some incredible stuff. Let's do this if we can. There are so many teams you just touched on, and that story with Lafayette is just insane there. If we can, James, I'm going to try to, through the great folks that are partnered with the VHSL Max Preps, show some of the brackets here on the screen so folks could actually visually see this as we break it down. And you're the guy that has the insight. You can give us the yay or nay as far as you think someone from the 757 is going to win or how you want to handicap some of these brackets. So let's go to that if you don't mind. That 3A girls bracket here. So I'll pull it up on the screen and try to
Absolutely.
zoom in. You got Lafayette Falk here in the quarterfinal round coming up on June the 4th this Tuesday. And we've got also scoring our ticker, those that want to know what's happening in baseball. We got the Class 6-5-4-3-2-1 Spring Baseball Championships rolling across our ticker right now as well. Western Albemarle awaits the Region D runner-up. The Region D champ will host Wilson Memorial, the Region C runner-up. And then you got Brentsville District hosting Tab. Is this Lafayette's bracket to lose here, or do you think someone can threaten them?
So this is going to be an interesting matchup if both Lafayette and Western Albemarle get to the semifinal. Western Albemarle ladies, I've been following them all season. They are a quality side as well. Do remember Lafayette has reached the championship match the past 2 years in a row. They won the championship 2 years ago. They fell by a goal last year. But genuinely coming into the season, this was the expectation for the Rams. This is not an accident. Coach Kelly, she has those ladies rolling. She has them absolutely dominating. And I am excited to see moving forward, especially what's going to happen Friday. That's going to be a match that I have, if they make it past Fauquier, which I expect they should, that's a match I have circled on my calendar of one that I might go. I might just travel to Charlottesville or Richmond to go see wherever they end up playing that match.
Yeah, it looks like the semis and finals are at Monticello High School. Before I let Ed jump back in here with some other matchups or perhaps a sleeper, a favorite here in this update of the VHSL Soccer Boys and Girls Championships. We're talking with James Clark of 757 Soccer Chat here on 757 Saturday Sports Talk on Cova Sports TV. What bracket, girls or boys, after that Class 3 where you have Lafayette with that great streak is most intriguing to you? Is there a bracket that stands out or a possible matchup, be it a quarterfinal, semifinal, that you say, oh, that's when you got to circle if you're a fan of soccer or just in general of sports?
I'm going to stick with the ladies side. I'm going to go with 5A girls. Up until this week, the Kellam First Colonial matchup was the match of the year. It had a lot of drama. It had a lot of thoughts and questions surrounding it. A lot of people were saying, oh, we were the better team. This was the better team. And the one thing that really stood out, I believe, last night for First Colonial was their goalkeeper. She actually was not present for the previous iteration of the match that they had in March. So Scarlett, she was in a tournament in Europe and coming back into last night's match, kind of changed the tide a little bit. And it depends when you have your first team versus your backup. It's it changes the dynamic of what you're able to do offensively. And First Colonial versus Kellum is two different types of styles of play. So going into the state tournament now, you've got First Colonial playing Menchville, and then Kellum and Maury will play. So First Colonial hosting Menchville for the first round, and Maury hosting Kellum as well for the first round. I expect the beach teams to make it out of that first round. They will not see each other until the final. So if we do see a quote unquote rubber match for Kellum and First Colonial, it'll be again in the 5A girls final. And I think that's going to be one for the ages as well.
And it should be compelling there, as you see, filling in some of that bracket that you have on the screen there. Briar Woods is going to take on the Region C champ. Independent's going to take on the Region C runner-up. But as you heard James talk about there, you have the Region champ and First Colonial from 5A taking on Menchville, while Kellum will travel not too far to take on Maury, which won Region 5B here. It is 757 Saturday Sports Talk as James Clark gives you the update and the lowdown on everything soccer here with us on Cova Sports TV, Ed.
Well, that was going to be my question for James is I'm just not as well versed anywhere close to what he is with the soccer. I just would like to see or know the 757 teams' chances of getting to the state championship, and then of course who would have a good shot at winning it. Of course, if I hear you right, if Kellum and First Colonial take care of business, they will meet in the championship, which means we're getting at least one state winner. So I guess that would be my question to you is who in the 757 looks to get a potential championship?
Let me go through the regions. So Lansdowne boys, the big hope with them is that they make it through for the first time in 3 years to the state championship. They've lost in the state semis the past 2 seasons. They played Cosby last night. It came down to the last 5 minutes of the match. So we hope for a rematch against Cosby for the Lansdowne boys. I do believe that team can do it. They have the pieces, they have the quality, they have the ability. Then 5A girls, we got First Colonial and Kellum. I believe that's going to be a potential championship class 5 for the ladies. For the men, for the boys, Great Bridge and Cox, 2 of the best teams in the state. I think that there's a chance that at least one of those teams gets through all the way to the final. That was a 1-0 showdown last night. Carson Danner with a spectacular finish to lift Great Bridge over Cox last night at Ocean Lakes as well. So Class 5 boys and girls, I think we've got a shot. Class 4 ladies is going to be difficult. Jamestown played well. Are they championship level caliber? I'm not quite sure. Same thing with Smithfield and Warhill. They're quality sides. I don't quite know that they've got the pedigree to get to the state championship game or to win it all. Lafayette ladies, I expect them to go ahead and take care of business. Grafton Lafayette boys is going to be interesting. Those two squads, they played each other really, really well. They've had some ups and downs. They both started very slow in the early season, but both of them have ramped up and played well throughout the Bay Rivers district, and then played well into the playoffs. So I think overall, we're looking at probably somewhere between 4 and 5 squads that will be lifting a trophy, potentially 7 to 8 that are making it to state championship games. I think out of those 20, and I include Northampton as well on the Eastern Shore. They're kind of included in our coverage. They come down and play a lot here in the area, so they've actually they've been in the state title game the past 2 years as well. So add 1 to both of those totals that I just gave you.
And we like it. And again, Max Preps has got all the updates. You go to the VHSL website, vhsl.org, and make sure you follow James on 757 Soccer Chat. Last one for me, and I'll let Ed finish up with you here, James. I know this is one of his questions he's probably had gotten down. He's going to slap me later for stealing it. But so if you and I know you like the fact too, and he probably does as well, that you have teams from our area on opposite sides of the brackets, and some of these, like you could get whether they're the two best teams, a Grafton Lafayette final, a Kellum First Colonial final, whether it be boys or girls. That's neat to see, because sometimes you might, as we've argued before in other sports, be it winter sports, fall sports, you want those two best teams playing in the final. I know in football, they're actually going to cross bracket this coming year. So you could potentially, if for say, laughs and giggles here, Maury and Green Run, the two best football teams, they could meet now in the championship as opposed to the semifinal round. But big picture though, if you had to pick one boys team, one girls team right now that you think is the very best, could win a tournament of champions, if you will, who would be your selections on June the 1st? Understanding full well that could change by June 11th or something in the next week or two could sway you in a different direction.
I'll go with the easy one first, Lafayette ladies.
Okay.
Off the jump. Because First Colonial and Kellum, for me, are still very tight to call. Because I do think seeing both of those teams several times this season, the score could easily flip the other way, because we're at that point of the season where we're not talking about fifth place versus seventh place. We're talking about first and second amongst everyone. Every single matchup is a 1v2. And these are all quality teams, all quality players, all quality coaching. It depends on the style and it depends on the day. We're talking about high school kids. So the results, just like, what was it last year? Princess Anne and Cox boys. Cox won the regional championship. Princess Anne turned around and beat them in the state final. It's a very simple task. Depends on the day and how the kids wake up that day. But again, Lafayette ladies for me on the ladies' side. On the boys' side, I'll go chalk to play safe.
Okay.
But I also have seen this team several times this year as well, and appreciate what they've done not just this season, but over the course of the seasons. I'll go Great Bridge. 19-0 going into the state championship rounds is nothing to sneeze at, especially when you play the schedule that they've played, you play the quality of teams that they've played. They've beaten everybody in the Hampton in the 757 from all the way from Jamestown all the way down to Cox. They've taken care of business. So give me Lafayette ladies, give me Great Bridge boys.
Not going to get an argument for me. How about you, Ed?
No, I mean, whatever he says goes in soccer, because he's the guru. I would be a fool to try to think I know it. I would say he is the guru of soccer. He knows it all. My question for him would be, who are some of the names of outstanding players that, quite frankly, could be the player of the year, boys side, girls side, 757, especially, as our listeners would want to hear that. So some names, James, and then maybe if you can do it, who would you pick right now, player of the year, boys, girls?
Love it. Good one.
That one's a little different. What's funny about this is I actually shy away a lot from doing names and because there are so many kids that are so deserving, so outstanding with their craft. And soccer is one of those sports where you can be good in different ways. But I'm gonna go Lafayette ladies. Their center midfielder Cece, their number 10. She's a fantastic player. Scarlett at First Colonial, their goalkeeper. I mentioned those two. Lily White at Maury, her as well. She's on my short list. Boys side, Dax Booth for Cox, Kamar Wilson, and I do not want to get his name wrong. I believe Ryan Walsh at Lansdowne, those two boys. Carson Danner, Jack Otley, Griffin Thomas at Great Bridge. Thinking for any of the other sides. That's kind of my short list. Yeah, and thinking about it, I'd have to kind of look at what I've got in the lower teams. But just off the top of my head, there's my short list for you guys. I'll give you that.
Now, let me ask you this. You say Lafayette hasn't given up a goal, in the last 12 games?
16 matches.
16 matches.
And here's one for you real quick, Ed. I looked at their roster, and James, correct me if I'm wrong here. I'm looking at their roster. I think 20 of their 22 players are back. They only have 2 seniors.
Who's that?
The Lafayette girls we're talking about, correct?
For next year.
Yes.
Yeah, that's remarkable. So they could be doing this run for a couple of years now.
Oh, they've already been doing it for a couple runs. This is their third year in a row in state. So
basically,
Coach Kelly Ernst is doing a phenomenal job up there at Lafayette.
That's amazing.
Well, I was going to say, you got to give some shout out to their goalkeeper. If they're not scoring, we talk about best players. We tend to think of the scorers out there running up and down the field, but playing in that goal.
Now, that's one of the 2 seniors that I'm looking at here. Coming up from wrong here, James. That's Eva Fields and Eden Schoonmaker, who's a sophomore. So that sophomore is going to have big shoes to fill if the senior leaves and starts giving up goals. I know that much.
Well, but think about it this way too. It's one of those things where when you see a stat like that, you immediately think the goalkeeper. You actually have to think the defense first, because a lot of those games, they probably didn't face but maybe 1 or 2 shots, and those 2 shots might not have been good shots. So I'm not saying that the goalkeeper shouldn't be credited, because I know I saw her make a couple saves against Jamestown and a couple against Smithfield that were quality and that preserved that record. But it also it relates to not just the goalkeeper themselves, but the defensive unit and the offensive unit, because with soccer, just like basketball, Ed, transition game, as soon as you lose the ball, the first person who lost the ball should be the first person playing defense. And it's very much a team award, a team effort to have some kind of record like that going into the state tournament.
That's some outstanding stuff. James Clark, make sure you follow him on IG. That's Instagram at 757_soccer_chat. He'll have all kinds of content for you, photos, videos. Check it out as he takes you through the state championships and the spring jubilees that'll be concluding next weekend. Always a pleasure, James. Enjoy the action today and next week, and I'm sure we'll get you back on here before the summer is out.
Absolutely. We've still got the North American Sand Soccer Championships next weekend. And VB United, Lions Bridge, and VB City coverage.
And we'll hear from VBU in just a bit, and got Chris Monter coming up as well. It is 757 Saturday Sports Talk here on Cova Sports TV. Jam-packed show. We've got some special guests. You heard from James. We've got Chris Monter coming up next. Tim Kurkjian, ESPN Baseball. This is your place for everything sports, whether it be high school, college, local, statewide, and national, right here with us on 757 Saturday Sports Talk. And let's hear from some of those sponsors like VBU, as well as Pain and Gain Sports.
Pain and Gain, your one-stop shop for all things field hockey. Located in Princess One Shopping Center, Virginia Beach, we carry everything you need on the turf, from black sticks, turf shoes, mouth guards, and much more. Try out your stick before you buy in our synthetic turf area. Pain and Gain. Embrace the pain, enjoy the game.
Get ready for a season of thrills and excitement. Virginia Beach United invites you to experience the adrenaline of USL League 2 Pro Soccer. Tickets are only $10 for adults, $7 for kids, and children 5 and under are free. It's the perfect family outing filled with fun and entertainment. Secure your seats now for a season of unforgettable soccer moments with Virginia Beach United. Don't miss out.
Welcome back to 757 Sports Talk. No, it's not in the pool. It's Hatfield and Young at the PLEX. the Virginia Beach Sportsplex. Here are two guys that, even though they never shut up, they're always dropping pearls of wisdom. Matt Hatfield and Coach Ed Young.
The real guy with the pearls of wisdom is our next special guest. He is the brainchild of the Monter Draft News college basketball news. You can find him all over the place. He's covering all kinds of basketball. He's been doing it for many, many years, longer and better than most out there. And again, he's on X, or Twitter as it's now known, or I should say it's now known more as X than Twitter. College BB News, our pal Chris Monter, who we've had on for many, many years on the radio side of things. The late, great Tony McCurry was the guy that was the first one who kind of introduced him to the audience all across Tidewater and the Commonwealth of VA. And we missed the late, great Blast Man. But we say hello to our pal, Mr. Monter. How are you, sir?
Great to be with you guys. How are you today?
We are well, and we'll actually flash on the screen here real quick. This was last week. For those that missed it, it covers our faces. You see, Chris was at the Wolves and Mavericks game number 2 last Friday. Had to get some extra rest here, but that's okay. Listen, Chris, you're allowed a tardy because Ed has overslept for our show and been in traffic more times than I could count. So you're allowed a tardy. It's all right. You had enough passengers to get that.
No.
He's good at
it. I know this dude, and I'm getting on him.
No need to.
He big timed us last week. He said, "Them two yahoos, I'll get to them later." I remember Chris when he was a snot-nosed young kid. I'm the one that said, "Hey," I met him at the Portsmouth Invitational.
Yeah.
He had his paper strewed everywhere. He was telling me what he did. I said, "Well, I know a guy on a radio station here local. We got to get you on because I like some of the stuff you're doing. I like this." And Chris said, "You think you can do that?" I said, "Well, we're going to do the best we can to get you on." I introduced it to Tony. I said, "Tony, get this guy." I don't know who this guy is. Man, he's a nobody. Tony, he's going to be one of the best in the business. He knows his stuff. He works his butt off. He's right down the middle type guy. You got to get him on. The rest is history. Yep. He went from that to the point where now he can big time us two yo-yos because we're still down at the bottom of the totem pole, but he's up there. But I still love him to death because he knows his stuff, and it's great to see you, Chris.
Great seeing you guys.
Ed hasn't changed.
All the success as well.
Thank you.
He
Ed hasn't
changed
changed
at all.
No, he hasn't. He's the same guy, which we can appreciate, but also get bothered by it. Go ahead, Ed.
How in the hell is this guy, the best in the business, what he does, sitting in the 97th row upstairs?
He thought you'd be on press row next to Kevin Harlan and Reggie and Jamal Crawford. That's what he was thinking.
I'm just I can be an average person too, enjoy the crowd. Yeah. So
see, we can appreciate that, Chris, because Ed, when he goes to a baseball or basketball game, he wants like all the VIP treatment. He wants people to like kiss his fanny, give him free food. That's what he wants. That's how he lives.
When I get a chance to get Chris, I go to the Hornet games. Buzz Peterson, a good friend of mine.
Both of you go?
No, he doesn't take me.
I'm not taking Hatfield nowhere.
I'm talking two fans because they don't draw super well. But I'm just teasing.
That's a good one. Yeah, both of us only two fans. That's a good one. Yeah.
No, Chris, first of all, I can't take Hatfield nowhere. It ain't going to work. He don't pay for a damn thing. And then I've got to lug him around. And, it would hurt my whole persona. So he got to stay home. But I go there. And Buzz Peterson gets me the tickets because I can't pay for tickets on my budget.
Yeah, you're a mooch, you're freebie. Go ahead.
If it's free or on sale, it's me. Yeah. My seats were even better than that. I said, we got to start. I'm going to have to call the Minnesota Brass and tell them to take care of one of their own. Chris Monter, move him on down there. He should be, at the very least, he should be right behind the bench.
Okay, we'll work on that then.
Well, let's go to that before we get to the NBA Finals, which is coming up. Boston and Dallas starts on Thursday. A week break for the Mavs, an even longer break for the Celtics, and it's approaching record-setting time off, and a lot of people upset about that. You were there for Wolves, who had such a wonderful run. They sweep the Suns unexpectedly to me. I'll give Ed his credit. He called that. He thought they were a serious title contender. I was more stunned by the comeback from 20 down in Game 7. In Denver against the reigning world champion Nuggets with the league MVP in Nikola Jokic leading the way. Your reaction to what transpired? Anthony Edwards certainly took off this postseason. Some criticism for Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns. We know they're great players, but Have they always delivered in the big spot? And does this team need some tweaking here? Because the Western Conference, as good as the Wolves are built right now, Chris, you know this, the West is a bear because at the blink of an eye, you can have anybody, even a Oklahoma City, a New Orleans, Memphis getting obviously their star and John Moran back. It's hard to sustain this in the West. And, oh, by the way, the Nuggets aren't going anywhere either.
Right. And I think, if you're a Minnesota fan, they hadn't been to the Western Conference Finals in 20 years. So it'd been a lot of disappointment. They had a long stretch of not even making the playoffs. So it was fun to see them and fun to see the city get behind the team. Minnesota, the four major sports, basketball, football, hockey, and baseball, we haven't won a title since 1991. So, unfortunately, fans expect the team to lose. And you even saw that even when they got down, after being up 2-0 against Denver, there are a lot of people, after losing games 3 and 4 at home, a lot of those people were already selling their tickets for game 6. So I just think if you're a Minnesota fan, you're just always expecting the best. You look at Minnesota, the Vikings, they've been to the 4 Super Bowls, lost all 4 Super Bowls, had some heartbreak losses in the NFC championship game, just missing out, losing to the Saints on a last minute play, losing to the Atlanta Falcons way back in '99 on a missed field goal. So we're used to kind of not having great success in the postseason, but it was a fun season. Like you said, there's a lot of optimism. They have some older players, like you mentioned, with Rudy Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns now 29, Mike Conley, getting up there in age, but they have, like you said, Anthony Edwards, only 22-year-old player. Jaden McDaniels, who was up and down in the postseason, a great defender, needs to be more consistent as an offensive player, only 23. Naz Reid, 6th man of the year, only 23. So there's some things to look forward to, but you're right. Oklahoma City, I think, will be better. Denver, I think, is going to be mad about losing. They thought they had a great chance of getting back to the finals. There's some other up-and-coming teams, like you mentioned, New Orleans, and they can never stay healthy and get their core together. They can be a dangerous team. But you're right. I think Minnesota's going to have to tweak their team. They have a lot of salary cap issues. McDaniels is going to be making $27 million a year starting next year. Likely, Karl Anthony Towns will have to be traded to get a little bit younger. You still want that number 2 player. I think that's the problem. Karl Anthony Towns sometimes is maybe a number 3 player, and you're paying like a number 2 player. But if you're a Minnesota fan, it was fun to see them because, like I said, we haven't had a ton of success lately, and I think this is actually the first team to go past 2 rounds. Even the Vikings, when they made it to the championship game in the NFC, they usually had a bye and only had to beat one opponent. So this is the first time we've had a playoff run of winning 2 rounds since 2003 with the old Minnesota North Stars, who are now, of course, the Dallas Stars.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you that before I let Ed jump back in here with the finals coming up, Celtics and Mavs. Any tidbits maybe on the draft or off season as well with you here while we've got you today? Going back to the North Stars, the Wild, the Minnesota Twins, which won World Series championships. You think back to Kirby Puckett's heroics, 91, 87. The Vikings have been heartbreak, the Gary Anderson kick. If you were to rank it as a Minnesota guy, and it's where you live, where is the fandom right now with those big 3? I should say, really more so with the Wolves, the Twins, Vikings. Is it Vikings? Is it Vikings town 1, then Wolves, then Twins? How would you kind of break it down right now? Because it has been a lot of heartbreak, and we think of other cities. We think of, obviously, Chicago had it with the Cubs until they won. The Red Sox had that long drought. There's other cities that have had some heartbreak. Cleveland did until LeBron got them that title, and Buffalo comes to mind with the Bills. But where is it kind of right now if you were kind of break it down from a town perspective?
Yeah, I think this is always going to be a Minnesota Viking town. There's a podcast that I think I even told you about. They were the old ESPN 1500, but now they're a podcast, and they talk Vikings every day. They have a Viking-centric show. So it just shows you, and the Vikings came into the league in 61, had great success, fairly quickly, making it to 4 Super Bowls. I remember I lived in Ohio until 1978, and they were in the Super Bowl that year before I moved. And I thought, at least I'm going to an area where, they've had success. They've been in 4 Super Bowls. Since I moved, and maybe it's to blame me, they haven't been in 1 Super Bowl. So I think, they've had, I think we've been in 3 NFC championship games. I've always had a good team, but never a great team. That's one of the things. I think they wanted to kind of retool, maybe take a step back, get a young quarterback. They had never drafted a quarterback in the top 10 in their league history in over 60 years. So they're hoping that J.J. McCarthy, who led Michigan to the national championship with Michigan, can be that young quarterback. I'd say the Twins are number 2. The Wild probably are number 3 still, even though they haven't had a ton of success lately. They've been a team that usually gets to the playoffs. They didn't this year, but they usually get bounced in the first round. And like I said, the Wolves have only one playoff series in 2 years, 2003, 2004, and then this year. So, they're a diehard fan. That's why I think a lot of people really got excited about this year. But to be honest, the Timberwolves haven't been very successful throughout the years. As a writer, sometimes I'll get tickets. I remember one year I got some tickets. I brought 3 friends, and I get to the box office. A guy hands me all these tickets, and they were actually more than 4. I said to my buddies, I said, "Hey, why don't you 3 walk in? I'll sell these other 4 on the corner. Whatever we get, we'll go out to eat." I could not even give them away. This is one season when they won like 15 games. So I think people want to get excited about the team. And I think Anthony Edwards is going to be one of the faces, if not maybe the face of the league. So I think that's going to get people more excited. But I think Minnesota Timberwolves probably are 3 or 4, with the Vikings and the Twins being kind of the top teams, because the Twins haven't had a ton of great success lately. They finally won their first playoff series in 20 years last year, but at least they won titles in 87 and 91 that fans can remember. I mean, it's 33 years ago and 37 years ago, but at least they've won titles.
Time now to break down the NBA Finals with Chris Monter, the Monter Draft News, college basketball news. Follow him on X at College BB News here on 757 Saturday Sports Talk on Cova Sports TV. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ed. I think I had Denver over Boston in the finals, and you had the Celtics winning it the whole way. So you're still alive, and I'm not.
Well, that doesn't surprise me. That's a lot of your picks to begin with. Chris, I want to go back to T-Wolves. I like their makeup. You went over it already. Some young, some older. They're going to have to, and of course, as the NBA is, you're going to have to move people for contract purposes and bring in some people for contract purposes. What I liked about it was they play defense, which we don't always associate that word with a lot of NBA teams. They play the defense hard. Anthony Edwards, he is the polarizer. And for a moment there, we thought Michael Jordan Jr., which I thought, come on now, the kid's 22 years old. He had a good year. He has a couple great playoff games, and we want to hurry up and anoint the next king of whatever.
Right.
I think he showed his vulnerability in the playoffs, didn't back up some stuff that he did. I think it seems to be a humble guy, young kid, but at the same time, he throws 1 or 2 words in there, sentences he shouldn't, about, here, I want Luka. Well, you got Luka, all right.
Right.
And I'm not a big Luka fan, but he tore them up. And I think he's going to have a field day against Boston, too, even though I think Boston will beat him. Go over a little bit more of Anthony Edwards. You've seen him up close, and you just made also mention he could become the face of the league, that's a pretty hard thing to do. But a little bit more about Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't even considered the surefire number 1 pick. I know a lot of people thought, James Wiseman, who was the talented big man out of Memphis, who unfortunately has kind of bounced around a little bit now with Detroit, showing a little bit better. But, there was also talk about maybe LaMelo Ball, but they took Edwards. You might remember the knock on Edwards was, did he really even like basketball? He always said football was kind of his first love. And so people questioned his intensity. I know Steve Kerr, who coached Edwards last year on the U.S. Team, the World Championship team that traveled, that he even told him that one of the reasons they weren't sure they would draft him if he would have slipped down to number 2 was they questioned his intensity. But I think he's an outstanding player. He's got the big smile, the highlight reel dunks. He had probably 2 of the best dunks you've ever seen. He had a couple of great blocks. But needs to be a little more consistent from the outside. And I think, you look at the structure of the Timberwolves, you're right. They are kind of defensive team. They were the number 1 defensive team, but they weren't in the top 10 offensively. And I think that's one area they need to add some more punch, maybe add some more shooter. Karl-Anthony Towns, one of the best shooting big men, but he can get cold. We saw that in game 3 where he went 0 for 8 from the 3-point line, made 4 in game 4, and was one of the key factors. They won that game and was a big factor in the series against Denver. But you're paying him, close to $50 million. You need him to be a consistent player who's going to do it on a nightly basis. And I think that's the one knock on him. But I think Edwards is only going to get better. You're right. He took a little more pride on the defensive level, maybe talks big. And you sometimes like that, but you got to be able to back it up. And you're right. I think a lot of people saw Minnesota as a great defensive team because they're long, lean, athletic. But when you play against a player like Doncic, you really need to body him up. And they did that in game 4. And they really held Kyrie and him to 13 of 39 shooting, but they weren't able to do that in the other games. And you're right. Doncic you see him a lot. If you see him for 5 games in a row, a lot of fans hate him here because he seemingly whines or he's a baby about every call, creates a lot of contact. But when he gets a foul call at him, he goes ballistic. But, he's a great player. And you saw it not only scoring wise, but you look at the dunks by Derek Lively and Gafford. I think Lively was 14 for 14 from the field. They were all dunks. Gafford, most of his shots were dunks because Doncic creates so much attention. If Rudy Gobert or whoever would leave their big man to try and stop Doncic, he'd just lob it and the guy would slam it. So you're right. You didn't see maybe the consistency you need out of Edwards, but again, he's 22 years old. I think he's going to get better. But the question is, what is the team going to look like around him in the future? That's going to be the question, because I think they're going to have to make some trades, because right now they're a second apron team, which means they pay a big tax, and not only just the contracts. Plus, there's a lot of questions about who's going to be the owner of the team. The original owner, Mr. Taylor, was trying to sell the team to a group with Alex Rodriguez and Mark Lowry. There's some questions about payments that they made. There's a big fight legally about that. So the question is, do they have the money to really not only buy the team, but run the team? And if they don't, maybe they would cut some of the salary as well.
That was going to be my next question to Chris was, you saw Rodriguez at some of the games, and people were wondering why there, but he's part of a potential ownership, but he's not the main person in that group. And does his group have a great chance of getting it? I know you said there's an issue and problem with that. Where does that all stand?
Yeah, that was a weird one, because basically they bought the team with the thought that Mr. Taylor would kind of run the team. They would kind of learn from him. They were almost like apprentice owners in a way. Over a 2-year period, would make payments during that time. But according to Taylor, they didn't make the payment on time. The last payment, they were a month late with that payment. Rodriguez and his group saying that they could be up to 30 days late. A lot of people question the purchase price. Originally, it was only $1.6 million, which in hindsight, when you look at Phoenix Suns getting sold for $4 billion, obviously a lot of NBA owners, I think, were not super happy that the price was lower than what they would like it to be. Because obviously, if you're an NBA owner, you want your price to be as high as possible when you want to sell the team, because that's, when you make your money, really, is when you sell the team. You don't make as much. You still make a lot of money on an annual basis, but you make the money when you sell the team. So you're right. It's going to be an interesting battle. Tim Conley, who's got a great job rebuilding the team, made the Rudy Gobert trade, which was controversial. Maybe didn't look great at the first year, because Gobert, I don't think, was 100% healthy. But this year, NBA Defensive Player of the Year, missed being the number 1 seed by one game. The question is, he has an option where he can leave. And if maybe the old group is in charge, maybe he doesn't stay. So that would be a concern. Detroit was supposedly mentioned with him, but they ended up hiring Trajan Langdon, the former Duke standout, who was at New Orleans. But you're right. This is will be an interesting team to watch. But I think the finals are going to be great. You have two teams that maybe a lot of fans don't know about nationally, especially Dallas. They're on TV a decent amount, but maybe not as much as the Lakers and the Suns and some of these other teams. And Boston's been a very good team that maybe is underachieved at times. They made it to the finals a few years ago, ended up losing last year, got knocked out in the first round by an 8 seed. But you have some interesting subplots as well. You have Kyrie Irving going back from Dallas to Boston, where he left kind of in bad terms, and then you have Kristaps Porzingis, who played for Dallas. That didn't really work out. Now he's with Boston. So I think it'll be an interesting series. Boston, a very good defensive backcourt team with Derek White, Jrue Holiday. You got 2 of the best scoring guards in the NBA in Irving and Doncic. So I think it'll be some great matchups. Obviously, you have Tatum and Brown for Boston's, but they're not a super deep team. Dallas, not an overly deep team, but they made some big trades, I thought, before the trade deadline, getting P.J. Washington, getting Gafford, giving you some more size, and maybe taking a little of the pressure off their 2 superstars.
Yeah, as we look at this, Chris, this series, big picture here, and break it down with you, this is the second straight year, you just touched on it, that we've had a team, a lower seed, make it to the finals. Last year, Miami as an 8 seed, knocking out Milwaukee and the Knicks and the Celtics on their way to the finals before they fell to Denver. Ultimately, it was 1-1. Nuggets won the last 3. This year, as a 5 seed, the Mavs took out the Clippers on the road. OKC in the second round, the top seed. Then they took out just this past round, Minnesota in the Western Finals to reach the finals now against the favored Celtics, best record in the league, and the Celtics set a record for threes made in a season this year. How much, A, is this series going to come down to the three-point shot, how much they can make of it and defend it, and B, the twosomes are interesting. You got Irving and Luka against Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Are the C's equipped to do it? And then lastly, on that element of this, how much is this going to come down to Porzingis' health? Because without him, the Celtics cruise through the East. The West is a different animal. The Mavs have gotten great performances from Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively, who made every shot in the Western Finals. Of course, they all were lobs or dunks, basically, all 3 feet around the basket. How much is that going to be a factor? So, A, that's kind of the element there, the three-point shot. B, the twosomes, Tatum Brown versus Luka. And Kyrie, is it a wash or an advantage either way? And C, Porzingis, is he the ultimate X factor determining whether this is a 6-7 game series, Celtics take it, or Mavs take it? What's your feeling on those elements?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really interesting series. And again, I think it's teams that maybe the national audience maybe isn't quite as familiar with, which I think is fun. I always, I know everybody says, oh, the NBA wants the Lakers or the Warriors or certain teams, but, I'm going to watch it if it's a good series, no matter what. Obviously, the ratings might be a little different, without a major, quote unquote, major market like a Lakers or whatever. But you're right. I think there's a lot of interesting matchups. Like you said, two great players on both teams. Brown, who wasn't all NBA this year, but he has been. Tatum, first team all NBA. Doncic, first team all NBA. So you got some great superstars. But you're right. Boston, I think, is a very talented defensive team as well. Like I said, Derek White, one of the best defenders in the league. Holiday, a first team all NBA selection as a defensive player. Brown, Tatum can be good defenders when they really want to be. Porzingis adds that size. So I think you're right. I think having, basically 8 to 10 days off for Boston's going to help them, because I think Porzingis probably could have played, if need be, against Indiana, but I felt like, they didn't need them. But again, Boston's been kind of an up and down team. They lost, some games you wouldn't have thought they would have lost in the playoffs. Maybe some temporary hiccups, but, you look at the Pacers, they easily could have won at least 2 of those 4 games. I'm sure they're kicking themselves over some of those opportunities where, like the one game they lost a 5-point lead in the last couple seconds. The other game they were ahead pretty much the whole game. So, Boston's shown they're not invulnerable, but they're a team that, to be honest, really hasn't had a ton to play for a long time. They were going to be the number 1 seed in the East for seemingly, after the midway point of the season. So they didn't really have to play super hard. They maybe didn't have the tough matchups that a team like Dallas did. And you give Dallas a lot of credit. You look, like you said, they beat the Clippers. They beat Oklahoma City, a young team, but still a team that had the best record or tied for the best record in the West, and then beat Minnesota. All 3 of those teams, the Clippers, the Thunder, and Minnesota, had the home court advantage. So I think going to Boston's not going to scare them, not worry them at all. So you're right. I think this is going to be a good series. I picked Boston over Denver before the playoffs, so I'm going to probably stick with Boston. But I was very, very impressed with Dallas. And you look how well they played after they made those trades. They were 25-5. You extrapolate that out over a whole season, that's 68 wins, which is more than even Boston won. So I think you're looking at 2 teams that are playing about as well as you can play right now, and seeing Dallas up close and personal, going to all 3 of the home games. And like you said, Doncic's not only a scoring ability but passing ability. Irving, says some things you maybe disagree or roll your eyes about, but you cannot argue that guy can score, and he can do a lot of things on the court. Like you said, Gafford, Lively, PJ Washington, Jared Jones hitting some big threes in the corner. Again, I think their depth, it could be a little bit of concern, but then, like I said, Boston, not a super deep team. They go to, Hauser and Pritchard and a few players off the bench. Obviously, Porzingis will help. Horford, can hit some big threes, but neither team's super deep. But again, a lot of superstars, a lot of all NBA defensive or offensive or first team all NBA players. So I think it's going to be a good series. I would be very, very surprised if it doesn't go at least 6 or maybe even 7 games.
3 minutes here with Chris Monter, the Monter Draft News, college basketball news. Follow him on Twitter or X at College BB News, with us here on 757 Saturday Sports Talk on Cova Sports TV. Neither the Celtics nor the Mavs had to play a 7-game series to get to this point in the finals. And might we see our first 7-game series in the NBA Finals since 2016, when LeBron James and the Cavs rallied past Golden State 8 years ago?
Yeah, I definitely expect a good series. Like I said, I would be very surprised if it doesn't go at least 6. And again, I think these teams are pretty evenly matched. Obviously, Boston had the better record in the regular season. You look at Dallas was only a number 5 seed. But again, like I said, I think after that trade, they're a totally different team than they were early on. The matching of Irving and Doncic, you look at last year, they basically told Irving not to play down the stretch so they wouldn't make the playoffs. They wanted to be a higher, they didn't want to be in the playoffs. They didn't want to be in the play-in. They wanted to get a higher draft pick, which, they end up getting a pick. They traded with the Thunder and end up getting Derek Lively, who I think has been a big factor as a starter in the beginning of the season, now coming off the bench. And like you said, he was dominant against Minnesota. Didn't do a lot in terms of, opportunities, but when he got the opportunity, like you said, it was a dunk every time. Long, lean, athletic player, can block some shots and can make a disruption on the defensive end. And you saw Gafford, he blocked about 5 shots, it seems like every game. So I think this is a lot different team than maybe what you saw early on. And that's why I think this is going to be a great series.
Ed?
Yeah, I think so too, Chris. I said as soon as it happened, I said Boston in 6, but didn't knowing Boston will probably play a game or two where they don't know each other. It'll probably go 7. And like I said, I'm not a big Luka fan. I don't know why, but he has really come into his own. We talked for a minute there. They were talking about Edwards early in the playoffs, best player in the NBA right now. I think right now you could almost put that on Luka. But the kid that's really been stepping up has been Jaylen Brown for Boston, which is about time because I'm one of those ones that said, hey, no way in God's green earth that guy deserved the contract he got. So, but that's a whole other story. I want to segue into maybe even your strongest point, NBA draft. Who, in your mind, is probably the number 1 pick, knowing there could be trades and this and that? Because I know it's probably some people not from American colleges.
No.
So who are some of the top guys to be on the lookout for? How do you see the draft shaping up?
Yeah, I mean, if you talk to pretty much every team, you're going to unfortunately hear the same thing, that this is maybe the worst draft in probably 10, 15 years. A lot of foreign players, a lot of players that fans aren't familiar. But the nice thing I actually like is they're actually talk about 4- and 5-year college players, which I always look at the draft maybe a little bit better, a little differently than other people. A lot of times you'll see these young players that get drafted, played only 1 year of college, maybe played in the G League, but maybe you start ready for the NBA. And people will talk, well, you want to get that second contract, that's where you make your money. But again, a lot of those players you look in the NBA, if you look over, the drafts 4 or 5 years ago, there's a lot of players who were drafted in the first round who aren't even in the league anymore. And I think that shows you that if you're not really ready for the NBA, and maybe by having that 4 and 5 years of experience, you look at Derek White was a late first-round pick. He played at Colorado Springs before he transferred to Colorado. I listened to Thad Boyle on satellite radio yesterday talking on NBA radio that he thought by sitting out a year, this is before the transfer portal was big, he sat out a year, practiced with the guys at Colorado, and you really right then they kind of knew he was going to be their best player, but used that. He had 5 years of experience, went to San Antonio, a team that has had a lot of success, knows how to develop players, and now has really turned into a different player in Boston. But I think you look at the NBA, and now you're starting to see maybe more players with some experience coming into the league, who are able to step in more quickly. Again, I don't think it's a great draft. That's why I don't think anybody was super excited about getting the number 1 pick, because I think there are going to be probably 5 of the top 10 players are going to be foreign players. You're going to see some Connecticut guys who you saw the last couple of years being drafted very high, probably 2 in the top 10. But I think this is a draft where you might see a lot of trades. But again, the question is, are teams really even excited about trying to move up in this draft? Because there are so many question marks. And I think, if you're Atlanta, if you could get a veteran player who maybe could get you over the hump, you might be open for business in terms of trade. So to be honest, I think this is one of the few drafts I have not been super excited about.
Yeah, I don't think you're alone, Chris. It's the first time I can remember the Hawks getting the number 1 overall pick. But Ed, as you know, as much as we can talk about Dalton Connect of Tennessee and Zach Edey of Purdue and Donovan Clingan of UConn's Castle from UConn, who I love, I think he could be as good a pro as anybody. That's not the name everybody's talking about right now, Ed, when it comes to the NBA draft for this year. It's a guy who might not even go in the first round.
Chris, got to ask you your opinion, because we're hearing a lot about it. Bronny James, is he being driven because of his dad? Is he really going to go into the first round? What what do you know from what you heard? Your opinion, definitely. What happens with Bronny James?
Yeah, that will be an interesting one because you're right. I remember around this time, maybe a little bit earlier, like last April, a lot of people in the scouting business were kind of complaining that Bronny James got a spot in the McDonald's All-American game. They usually have 20 players picked, and then they pick 4 kind of add 4 players. He was one of the players that got added, even though you looked at his ranking, he wasn't ranked among the top 24. He was kind of in the top 40 area, but he got selected obviously a lot because of his name. And now you kind of question, now he's going into the NBA draft where you look at the numbers he put up, at USC. Obviously, I give him a ton of credit, made the great comeback from the heart incident that he suffered before the season, but you look at the numbers, if it were, Ed Young, who averaged, 6 points a game, and he entered the draft, you'd think most people would say, hey, maybe you need another year of school. That's not going to be the case. So the question is now, if you're a team, do you draft him with the thought, hey, we're not only going to get him, but we might get his father. And obviously that's going to have a big impact, not only in the court, but also in terms of tickets, merchandise, et cetera, et cetera. So I think, unfortunately, it kind of puts him in a bad position where I would like to see him, maybe just go back to school. Maybe if it's not USC, find a place where you feel comfortable playing and just being the best college player you can be, and then making that jump to the NBA. But, I've talked to other people and I've heard even people say, hey, you look at the NBA or a lot of sports things, all of a sudden you look at the owner, his kid is, in the front office, or the head coach, his son is on the staff, so obviously there's a lot of nepotism in sports, now a lot of nepotism in business. And you hope that, Bronny makes the moves that are going to be best for him as an individual, and maybe not so much on, what his dad wants. And obviously his dad said, hey, I'd love to play for my son. And you kind of wonder if that kind of got things going maybe a little faster and maybe accelerated things more than they should be.
Always great to have you on, Chris Monter. Monter Draft News, college basketball news. Give him a follow on Twitter or X at College BB News. He's a wealth of information, a fountain of info. Before we let you run here, I'm going Celtics in 6. Jason Tatum is the MVP. Ed, your pick, and then Chris will finish up with his pick and MVP for us. Go ahead, Ed.
I got Celtics. I said Celtics in 6. I'm going to throw another game in there. I'll go 7. MVP, just to be different, Jaylen Brown.
All right. How about you, Chris? Break the MVP tie for us in the pick. I think you might be going the same way with us on who wins it.
Yeah, I got the Celtics game 7. But again, I was super impressed with Dallas, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Mavericks won that. I would probably stick with Tatum, although you're right, Brown, stepped up his game. He didn't have had a very good, but not a great regular season. Didn't make the first 3 NBA teams, but I think Tatum will end up being the MVP.
Always a pleasure, Chris. I'm sure we'll get you back on here as the summer gets rolling and we get to the draft and other good things. So keep in touch. Enjoy the weather there in Minnesota and the Twins, as they have a great AL Central race with the Cleveland Guardians and Casey Royals. And Ed's got his finger up. He's got something else to add. Go ahead.
Last thing is, Chris, great to have you on as always. Great to see you, hear from you. Now go out and go ahead and shovel the snow, because I know it's Minnesota. So there's snow somewhere in Minnesota.
Like 75 degrees.
Yeah, Barkley said that on TV. Everybody thought it was snow in there. That was a myth, right?
Yeah, it was like pollen, cottonwood pollen. But it did look weird because it's like, I know it's 7 degrees. I know it can't be snowing right now. But yes,
that's funny.
Very nice weather. I definitely am going to go out there and enjoy it today. I know that.
I'm going to the beach today. It's 84.
There you go.
There you go. I got some other stuff to do too. Well, Chris, thank you. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll talk again soon.
Look forward to it. Thanks again, guys. Have a great day.
That is the basketball guru himself, Chris Monter, with us from the Monter Draft News, College BB News. Our man Dan Malloy says, go Mavs, and he also says extremely disappointed in the wise Hatfield Mavs in 6, so he disagrees with our picks there. We got another timeout because coming up after the break, Ed, we've got a special guest. We've had on Chris Monter, we've had on James Clark, we've got ESPN MLB analyst and Hall of Famer Tim Kurkjian joining us here on 757 Saturday Sports Talk and Kova Sports TV. But before we do all of that, we got to hear from some of the sponsors that make it possible for us to give you this show each and every week from the PLEX with folks at Kova Sports TV and Hometown Sports Productions. So for that, we will take a time out and hear from those great folks right now. And back in just a bit with you all here on 757 Saturday Sports Talk. Ed Young's favorite YouTube channel, Ed Young's favorite streaming show. I got that right, didn't I? Is that right?
Kova Sports TV.
There you go.
At CHKD, sports medicine is more than just treating injuries. It's a whole team approach to caring for young athletes. With experienced physicians, surgeons, trainers, and rehab specialists here when kids and teens need them most. Our experts help young athletes prevent injuries too, with advanced training and conditioning programs that keep them in the game safely. CHKD Sports Medicine, where kids are more than patients and we're more than a hospital.
Get ready for a season of thrills and excitement. Virginia Beach United invites you to experience the adrenaline of USL League 2 Pro Soccer. Tickets are only $10 for adults, $7 for kids, and children 5 and under are free. It's the perfect family outing filled with fun and entertainment. Secure your seats now for a season of unforgettable soccer moments with Virginia Beach United. Don't miss out.
Well, it's everybody's favorite time of year again. Time to prepare to make your annual donation to that infernal revenue service. So get off your W-2 and call John Maynard at John's Tax Service. 455-6763.
As a banker at Town Bank, we believe that people bank with people, not with banks. You're looking for an actual personal relationship, and that's what you get at our bank. You get that person that gets to know you, gets to know your business, is there for you. I think that is what motivates us, what drives us, and the idea that we are trying to serve others and enrich lives, I think is very true.
After more than 50 years of innovation, AstroTurf still leads the way. The inventor of artificial turf does it all, right here in the USA. We engineer, test, manufacture, and install the world's most innovative fibers and turf technologies, with over 30,000 tracks and fields worldwide. AstroTurf, powered by Sport Group. This is 757 Saturday Sports Talk. Here are Matt Hatfield and Coach Ed Young.
And we welcome you back to 757 Saturday Sports Talk. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel on Cova Sports TV. And we have a special guest with us. He is the Hall of Famer, ESPN Major League Baseball analyst, back with us again. He joins us every year, and he's so kind with his time. The one and only Tim Kurkjian. Tim, thanks for joining us. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I've heard you mention this on a couple other platforms, I believe, with the great Tony Kornheiser on his show as well. You're now doing, is it a podcast with your son? Tell us all about that. That's pretty cool.
Yes, thank you. My son, Jeff, who's 30, he's a radio talk show host in Philadelphia. He does morning radio, but it's music talk, not sports. So we do our own podcast now. It runs every Tuesday. It's called Is This a Great Game or What? It is joyful. It is playful. It is respectful. We have no hot takes on the show. We're not breaking any news. We're just trying to explain our love for the game. This podcast is all about laughing and learning about baseball because it's the best game ever. My son loves it. And the thing that really works is he knows everything about music and pop culture and technology. And I don't know anything about anything except for baseball, basketball, and sitcoms from the 60s. So that's about all I can help with. But I'm mostly the content guy. Jeffrey takes care of everything else.
So of all the wonderful things you've done in your legendary career, from covering so many, amazing athletes, television, radio, print, Hall of Fame, where's that on your list? Because getting a chance to do a podcast with your son and talk baseball has to be pretty special for you.
Yeah, I didn't think anything could top going into Cooperstown in the writer's wing, but this has topped it for me because, again, when you get to work with your son, and he's so good at this, and we enjoy it so much. And tomorrow, Sunday, we're doing a live stream from Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia. since it is Lou Gehrig Day, I lost my brother Matt to Lou Gehrig's disease last September. So this one is going to be very emotional for us. Uncle Matt was absolutely the best to my son Jeff. So we're going to try to spread the word and spread awareness of ALS. We have to do something to find a cure for this disease. That's what most of tomorrow will be about in Philadelphia.
No question. Great cause there. As we talk with Tim Kurkjian here on 757 Saturday Sports Talk. And as you can see on our screen, Ed is going to ask Tim now about his New York Yankees because he's wearing the shirt and he's obsessed with them, Tim.
Tim, first of all, great to have you on again. We appreciate you every single time. You're our best that we ever have had. And we hang our hat on having you. When we advertise and talk about our show back when it was on ESPN radio podcast, we say we have Tim Kurkjian, and people say, how you get him?
We've already got 3 questions that have been sent in for Tim, which we'll get to before we let him run. But go ahead, Ed.
But I want to know, and also, Tim's got to remember this, okay?
You got the book?
Your books, Tim. Now, this is not the only one you have. You have some other ones out there, right?
That's my third book. Is this a great game or what? Is my second book, and that's the name of the podcast. I'm fascinated by Sacrifice Flies. My third book. And Ed, when I write a fourth book, the 2024 Yankees might be heavily involved in that because they are really good. Aaron Judge just finished one of the greatest months that he's ever had. He had 14 homers and 12 doubles. Albert Bell, 1995, is the only player ever to have 14 homers and 12 doubles in 1 month. He had 26 extra base hits. Only DiMaggio and Gehrig had a month in Yankee history with more extra base hits. And he isn't even the best player on the team right now, even though he was in May, because Juan Soto has been absolutely brilliant from day one there. He has changed that offense. They were 27th, I want to say, in the league in on-base percentage last year. They're first this year, in part because Juan Soto showed up and showed everyone, including Aaron Judge, this is what a professional at bat looks like every single time. It's amazing how good he is, and he's only 25 years old. They are a demonstrably better offensive team than they were last year, but more important, their pitching has been great. Luis Gil was going to be the pitcher of the month in May. He wasn't even supposed to be on the team. He's only on the team because Garrett Cole got hurt, and now they're going to get Garrett Cole back in the middle of June. There is nothing not to like about the Yankees right now.
Tim, real quick, I want to get your take because I saw that graphic last night. I forget if it was on ESPN or MLB Network about the most extra base hits in the month of May by a Yankee, ahead of Gehrig, DiMaggio, and Ruth for Aaron Judge. And people were getting worried, as you know, New York sports fans are and diehard Yankees fans like Ed are. Something wrong with Judge. The weather was cool. He heated up as we knew he would. Is it possible, and there's a lot of great players in both leagues. You know about Gunnar Henderson with the Orioles, Jose Ramirez with the Guardians, who have been a terrific story here with the first-year manager and Stephen Vogt, Kyle Tucker with the Astros, the National League. But is it possible that both leagues have 1-2 in the MVP voting, 2 players from the same team, with Betts and Ohtani, or Ohtani Betts with the Dodgers, and then the Yankees with Soto Judge or Judge Soto? Is that possible in your eyes?
Yes, that has happened before. In 1968, Denny McLain won the MVP, and Bill Freehan, his catcher, finished second. That's the only time in baseball history that a pitcher and a catcher have finished 1-2 in the MVP voting. So this thing about stealing votes from each other, I totally understand how that works, but I think right now it's Soto Judge in the American League, and I think it's Betts Ohtani in the National League, and it could stay that way. This is the beauty of the voting. I've been a voter for 40 years on these things, and it's really difficult. And this will be a really difficult year because there are about 7 or 8 really good candidates, especially in the American League right now.
Well, obviously, Tim, you started off talking with the Yankees, and I know we can't spend the whole show on the Yankee, but my thing is, we're doing well. I say we, like I'm a part of the team, but now we just lost Schmidt with the hope that we'll get Cole back soon enough. Carlos Rondon has finally earned a little bit of his money at the very least. And, of course, you mentioned Hill from what he's been doing. The other big talk that's coming on, and I don't think it's main, is will the Yankees keep Soto? They talk about, he's a Steve Burrows guy, which is a whole other story. but obviously he's open to it. But we do know he's going to get a Megatron type contract. And I know it's way too early to even think about it and not even obsessed with it. I think the Yankees have a great chance of keeping him. What's your opinion on that subject?
Yeah, first off, you're right. It's way too early. And second, I think they have a great chance of keeping him for this reason. If he has an MVP season, if they go to the World Series, if they win the World Series, how in the world are they going to justify letting a historic young player get away at age 25, 26? I don't see how they're going to be able to justify it. They're going to have to give him more than anybody else. It's going to start with a 5, and they're going to go from there. And Scott Boras is going to drive the hardest bargain. He's going to make sure that Soto gets to free agency so more teams can bid. But when you're the Yankees and you haven't been or won since 2009 to the World Series, this isn't good enough when you're the Yankees. And if he's the reason that they win this year, I can't imagine how they could possibly justify letting him get away. But it's Scott Boras, it's free agency, and we know anything is possible.
All right, let's go to some questions for Tim Kurkjian, the Hall of Famer, ESPN Major League Baseball analyst with us here on Cova Sports TV, 757 Saturday Sports Talk. Scotty in Richmond wants to know, what can my Orioles do to get to the World Series? Can they possibly pry away Mason Miller from the Oakland A's for the bullpen? And interestingly enough, he's probably one of the hot targets for teams, even Ed's Yankees as well, Tim, for the trading deadline, because I remember the game just a few Fridays ago where Craig Kimbrell, who's among the all-time leaders in saves, blew a save. Miller came in through gas. He's been electric, and the A's came back to beat the O's. Is that the only thing holding back Baltimore right now with Bautista hurt, that closer spot?
Yeah, I think they're going to need some help, and I don't think Mason Miller is out of the question. That guy is great. He throws 104 miles an hour with elite command. He's unhittable when he's right. He has maybe the best stuff in Major League Baseball right now. And the Orioles have enough in their minor league system to go get somebody like him. It's going to be wildly expensive. But once you've won 101 games like they did last year, then you bring in Corbin Burns, maybe just on a rental. You can't just be good this year. You have to be a champion. And I think the Orioles are going to go for it. But before they get to their bullpen, they've had a bunch of injuries to their starting rotation. John Means, Tyler Wells, Kyle Bradish was out early. They've got and Grayson Rodriguez was hurt. So they've got a lot of work to do to put that rotation back together with all the injuries. I think they will, and I think they'll go get a closer before the trade deadline.
Another quick question we'll slide in here before Ed jumps back with us. Bobby in Norfolk wants to know, how do the Mets fix the mess they're in right now? Mets have won a couple here against the Diamondbacks, but they've won a lot of games, especially in the month of May, Tim.
Yeah, they're in a lot of trouble. They were 10-20, I believe it is, in May. They lost 4 games in 1 month that they led into the 9th inning. And Edwin Diaz, their great closer from 2 years ago, has been anything but great, and he's on the injured list. Their starting pitching without Kodai Senga just hasn't been the same. And they're still a good offensive team, but not a great offensive team. And they are in the wrong division, even with the dilapidated Braves without Strider and now Acuna Jr. The Braves are way better than the Mets. And so are the Phillies. If the Mets get to 500 and start to build for next year, which they might try to do. They have some very interesting pieces they could move. I think that's the best way to go. I'm surprised they played as poorly as they have, but they played better lately. They're going to come out of this. They're going to finish 500, but they're not going to make the playoffs from what I can see.
Yeah, very tough to do with the Phillies having an awesome year. The Braves, despite the injuries in the Nationals, showing much improved. We're talking with Tim Kurkjian, ESPN MLB analyst. A few more minutes with him here, the Hall of Famer, on 757 Saturday Sports Talk on Cova Sports TV. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also available on Facebook, Instagram, X, or Twitter, as some call it still, VirginiaPreps.com, as well as Apple and Spotify. Ed?
Tim, looking at the league in general, we talk Yankees, great start. This is what they wanted to do after last year's disaster. What are some of your other surprises, both good and bad? You're looking at teams like Cleveland and Kansas City doing really well. Houston, just what's going on with the Astros? Your pluses and minuses of the teams at this point.
Yeah, the Mets are a minus. We just discussed them. The Astros are also. I'm really surprised how poorly the Astros have played, although they're starting to put it together, and they will be a very dangerous team as the season moves along. But they started the year with a really decimated starting pitching rotation with all sorts of guys hurt, led by Justin Verlander and others. Now they're finally starting to get healthy there. That tremendous back end of the bullpen was not tremendous for the first month, but that's starting to come around. And I still don't think they've started to hit yet. I mean, Yordan Alvarez, Alex Bregman are great hitters, and they haven't been great so far, but that's going to turn around also. So that's the team I look at and say, I'm surprised they've started this poorly. But you also identified all the other teams. I never saw the Guardians being this good. Stephen Vogt, the manager, has done a tremendous job, and mostly they've scored way more runs than I thought they would. I thought they would be a subpar offensive team, but led by Jose Ramirez, they've been really good. The Royals have been a big surprise. They just won 8 games in a row. They're in a little bit of a slide right now, but with Bobby Witt Jr., they are a team that I think is going to stay in the division race the whole season. And the Brewers are a big surprise on the plus side. I thought with all the offense and pitching that they lost in the offseason, and they lost a great manager, that they wouldn't be a real solid contender. And right now they're the best team in the NL Central, and that might not change the way they're playing right now.
Yeah, I didn't see that one coming either, Ed.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. And, somebody like, we mentioned the Mets. I'm such a Buck Showalter fan. I can't believe they got rid of him. And me personally, don't know the man at all. I don't think Carlos Mendoza was the type for what's going on with the Mets. I think that's more personnel situation. But again, that's a whole another story. Same thing with San Diego. I thought San Diego would be a little bit better right now. Of course, I think the Dodgers are going to dominate in that situation. Tim, what about players? Some other guys that have caught your eye? More so, let's talk maybe more positive than guys that aren't having a good year, because maybe that'll come. But maybe some players that are catching your eye.
Yeah, well, Mason Miller, we mentioned, you can't take your eyes off him, and you can't take your eyes off of Paul Skeens of the Pirates. He dominated in college baseball last year. His college coach said he could have pitched in the major leagues last year as a senior in college. He tore it up in the minor leagues, and he is tearing it up in the big leagues. He's already setting basically records for velocity for a starting pitcher. He has been overwhelmingly good, and he just turned 22 years old. So he's another pitcher that has caught my eye, and the pitching has been so good in the big leagues this year. I don't know how anyone ever gets a hit anymore. And just guys like Ranger Suarez of the Phillies. I mean, I knew he was a good pitcher. This year, he's been a great pitcher. He had a 9-0 record and a 1.36 ERA after 10 starts. Wheat Wilhelm and Juan Marichal, the only pitchers ever to have an ERA that low and 9-0 record after 10 starts. That's how good Ranger Suarez has been. But every day I look at the pitching that we see, and it's just the hardest hitting environment in baseball history. The stuff we see on a nightly basis is just incredible.
Tim, I'm going to go off the field right now. Some of the sports talk radio around here I listened to last couple of days, the big addition of the Negro League statistics into Major League statistics seems to be accepted, but some people are kind of like, well, wait a minute, do we have all of them? And is it fair because they didn't really play against Major League competition? And of course, there was tremendous Negro League players, and the feeling was, yes, there was probably 10, 12, 13, 15 really, really, really good ones, but the rest of the league was diluted, which could be said about the majors at that point in time way back then also. But more importantly, your opinion on what was added in all that rhetoric about those stats.
Yeah, I think it was the right thing to do. I think it was overdue. I know the guy who ran it, John Thorne. He's as good a historian as we've ever had in baseball. It was a 17-person committee that worked for 3 years to be accurate with everything that they did here. And yes, maybe, the black players didn't play against the best competition, but major league players didn't play against the best competition because there were no black players in the game. So I think this is something that needed to be done. I'm thrilled that it was done. And now we can appreciate even more how great, say, Josh Gibson was. He is now the all-time single-season batting average holder ahead of Ty Cobb. He now has a higher career OPS and slugging than Babe Ruth. And I think this is really important that this was done. And for those who say, well, they only played 60-game seasons, that's not necessarily true. And I repeat, the accuracy with which, Retro Sheet, Seam Heads, the Elias Sports Bureau used for all of this, if it wasn't accurate, I wouldn't go there. But I'm certain that what they came up with were accurate numbers, and they deserve to be integrated in the major league numbers.
Go ahead, Ed.
I just want to say, Tim, I think the problem is, and you've said this before on our show, baseball is so strong in tradition. We don't want to touch it. We don't mess with it. And I think bringing these stats in here now, I think that's where the issue is, because we don't, say that these players don't deserve it. There's no question they deserve it. And those great ones are in the Hall of Fame where they should have been because they were unjustly not put in the major leagues back then. But I think it's the tradition that hurts people in this.
Yeah, and tradition is difficult, but in the end, it's still just a line in a record book, and it means a lot, but it's interpretive. You can make up your own mind. Do I think that Josh Gibson is now the greatest hitter of all time? I don't think so. I still think it's Babe Ruth and Ted Williams. I'm allowed to have that opinion, but Josh Gibson needs to be recognized here, and those numbers need to be recognized. So I'm all for changing tradition, especially when it comes to the statistics, as long as they're accurate, and believe me, they are.
Totally with you. That acknowledgement is very important. Last one for Tim here. We could have you for hours and ask you tons and tons of questions. That's why we ask you to put it into the mailbag, and we thank our producers for getting it up on the screen here. The last question for Tim from Eddie in Williamsburg. What teams do you see being most active as buyers or sellers before the trade deadline? It's hard to believe we're already talking about that, and it's not even the All-Star break, Tim. We're not even halfway through the season, but people want to know, what teams do you see being active as either sellers or buyers before the deadline?
Yeah, we've already talked about the Orioles. They're going to go be buyers because they're really good, but the Yankees are in their division, and they're going to have to go get some more help. I'm interested to see, say, what Seattle does. Seattle is I think it's a subpar offensive team, but their pitching is so good, but they need to go get another hitter if they're going to win a division that also includes the Astros and the Rangers, neither of which have gotten going yet. So keep an eye on the Mariners. And we talked about the Mets. Just keep an eye on what they're going to do in the reverse. Are they going to take Pete Alonso and move him and start a rebuild? Or are they going to do what I think they should do and sign him long-term and make him one of the cornerstones of their team moving forward? So there are a lot of teams out there that are looking to buy. There are only a few teams out there that are looking to sell. It'll be a fascinating trade deadline as always.
You can find his work everywhere. He does MLB Tonight, ESPN, baseball coverage, ESPN.com, ESPN Radio, and, of course, check out the podcast with Tim and his son. Always a pleasure, Tim. Enjoy the baseball weekend, and I'm sure we'll be in touch as we get closer and closer to the Fall Classic and we crown a champion.
Okay, Matthew. Thank you, Ed. See you guys soon.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Tim. That is the one and only Tim Kurkjian with us here, giving us so much time and great insight and info here on 757 Saturday Sports Talk on Cova Sports TV. How cool was that to have him on the screen with us for the first time? We've done this with 20 times radio. Now to have Tim pop it up, and you know what's really cool for me? Just to get the you have his number, and just to get the email reply from the great Tim Kurkjian. That's like one of those things you print out and save. Pretty cool. Yeah. I've been watching this guy since I was I don't want to make him feel knee high in a grasshopper. We could have brought up, we didn't. We probably should have brought up his old teacher, Harry Rest from back in the day.
We're gonna have to do that. We're gonna have to do it where we get it.
Imagine we pop up Harry on the screen. Now Harry, he's not the most technological stuff. That'd be a real treat. We'll do that one of these years.
We got to do that these times.
We can't say years because you never know how long we're all with us. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying. But Tim, people don't realize guys at his level, we can't just call and get, because they've got so many other things going on more demand on their time because they're that good. And he has moved people around for us, which, I laugh at because there's no reason he has to do it.
Appreciate you, Derek. We the check is in the mail. I don't know what's in that.
Well, hold on. Before we give Derek a check, let's make sure I get paid.
Make sure you get paid. The check is in the mail. Let's hope your check doesn't mail. Let's hope Derek's check don't. I might be 0.01. But you know what we've touched on this show, which I'm so proud of. We've hit on the local angle with the soccer. We've hit on the regional angle and the statewide angle. Hitting the NBA angle and Minnesota angle with Chris Monter. And then we hit the whole national with baseball. And we didn't even get really into. We got some questions that came in through. I think it was 2 through X or Twitter, as they call it. And one was a Facebook post. One of those get those questions, and we probably going to miss some that didn't catch my eyes. But we wanted to throw in as many as we could for Tim. We know the fans love getting questions his way. So pretty cool. Pretty cool.
You know what? We'll answer them doggone questions, and then we'll get them to Tim. I have his number, so we can take care of all that kind of business.
We've got one more break, and to finish up the show, we have an interview clip with a high school football standout. We'll tell you who that is when we come back. Ed will introduce that when we come back. And we have our annual spelling bee. That's right. Ed Young gets to see if he can spell some names.
Names. I'm already in the lead.
He just did it. We're not going to. We remember that one year we did it. We did the radio show it was a football camp in Chesapeake. I think it was you and Marty Asprey from Grassfield did a spelling contest.
Eastside camp.
I think he beat you by 2 names, but it was one of the people said to me that was one of the they said it was one of the wildest / dumbest things we did, but I thought it was entertaining. Al was laughing his tail off over there. He thought it was funny hearing you guys spell tennis names. It was great. I thought it was great, but we don't have a contestant for you today. I could have saved this to have you play my father, Mike Hatfield. But right now, he's dealing with some other things that I'll have to tell you off air. But I don't know if he wants it out there in the public domain, out there in the public sphere.
Definitely can't get him on when he's driving because.
No, that would be bad. We'd have to have the expletive button. But good job by the producers.
Colorful language when he drives.
Very colorful. Very colorful. He is always very, very, very colorful. But we're going to take a time now.
How cool was it? We had Tim's book. I got Tim's book right there.
I was going to say to Tim that you're going to ask for like 2% of the sales for this book now that you're.
I wish I could get Tim to sign it though. That's what I like to do. He's fascinated by Sacrifice Flies.
Why don't you go to Philadelphia tomorrow? See him and his son for Lou Gehrig Day. You could do that.
Had a chance to get close to Tim Kurkjian.
He was this wacko. I just had him on the show yesterday. What show? This guy's Looney Tune land.
Yeah, you'll be the one to alert everybody. Hey, this dude's going to come in named Ed Young. Put him in the slammer, and it happen and happy as can be.
That's right. But let's get one more commercial break in here with all of our great sponsors and folks that make it possible for us. Oh, and you know what Ed's got to get when he's got a craving for some pizza?
Oh, yes. Yes, I need it. Matter of fact, I wish I had a slice right now. Yeah.
Chichos.
Bring it.
At CHKD, sports medicine is more than just treating injuries. It's a whole team approach to caring for young athletes. With experienced physicians, surgeons, trainers, and rehab specialists here when kids and teens need them most. Our experts help young athletes prevent injuries too, with advanced training and conditioning programs that keep them in the game safely. CHKD Sports Medicine, where kids are more than patients and we're more than a hospital.
Treat yourself to a visit to the Drip Bar IV Hydration and Vitamin Therapy in Virginia Beach. Boost your immunity, increase your energy, and promote anti-aging with our personalized treatments designed to ensure efficient nutrition absorption to rejuvenate your mind and body. Come see our chic and relaxing day spa for yourself today. We welcome walk-ins and appointments. Our medical professionals will help you achieve your best health and answer all your questions. The Drip Bar at Lansdowne Commons in Virginia Beach.
And now back to Matthew Hatfield and the evil basketball coach. Blast you, Ed Young!
All right, our final segment of 757 Saturday Sports Talk on this particular Saturday on Cova Sports TV. Like, share, and subscribe wherever you may be. Drop us a comment, drop us a note, drop us a line, anything on your mind, and we'll make you a part of the show. Ed, we've got an interview with one of the high school football standouts. We've had a bunch of them the last several weeks. We've got more to come in the days and weeks to come as we get closer to kickoff time. We'll be getting some first-year football coaches on the show, and before you know it, Ed's summer vacation will be over. But right now, it's still springtime, and he's got graduation in a week, and we've got a football player to hear from.
Yeah, one of the things I do love, and you do too, is we get the youngsters to talk here on the show, speak, and give them their first chances for interviews to see, and then maybe they someday see them in the NFL or Major League Baseball or NBA and say, we interviewed them first. And speaking of first, we're going to have Norcom standout wide receiver defensive back Matthew Outten, who talked with Matthew Hatfield, 2 Matts in 1. And let's see what both Matts had to discuss here recently on COVID TV Sports.
I'm here with Norcom class of 2025 athlete Matthew Outten, one of the state's best prospects, and he has the best first name in the state, I will say. Matthew, tell me how the offseason is going for you, the grind, as you guys are getting ready for the season coming up and your senior campaign with the Greyhounds.
Yes, sir. It's going well. Everybody just working. We're getting better. Really just getting locked in for the season. Everybody grinding. So.
And I know the last week or two, you guys have had your college showcase day over there in Portsmouth, having all the college coaches come out. When they come to see you live, what do you hope they walk away taking about or learning about Matthew Outten, the football player in general?
Just to know that I'm a real dog, and they can see really what I do.
Now, you said a real dog and see what you do. For those that haven't watched you play and maybe put on your highlight tape this year, watch you on Friday nights in Norcom, what are they going to see in the football player? Kind of break down your own game from your perspective.
I would say I'm very aggressive. I attack the ball. So it's really guarding me. Really going to have to be on it. So.
Sure. What have you improved on the most from freshman year to now, and then what do you still have to get better at in your eyes?
I would definitely say I've improved with my tracking the ball down, I would definitely say, and with my hips, and just working on how to really just locking in on the ball, make sure I, return the ball for it.
Sure, yeah. Security, no doubt. Recruiting's taking off for you. I know you've gotten a bunch of your offers lately. Give us the update on what you're looking at right now.
It was just getting into my top 6 and narrowing down the schools and seeing what I want to go to for my college career.
You said you have a top 6? Mm-hmm. Tell us that top 6 if you can.
We have Penn State, Virginia Tech, Syracuse, Maryland, South Carolina, and Tennessee.
Let's talk about them. Penn State, we like about the Nittany Lions. And then they got a guy a couple years ago from the Eastern District in Keandre Lambert-Smith. Mm-hmm. Give me the kind of the contact or the connection with them.
Yeah, I can see their development and their wide receivers, and I can see myself really, playing there and being something great there.
Have you visited them?
Yeah, I've been.
What was the vibe up there like? How'd you think of the place?
Yeah, it was good. I like the campus. I like the coaches, so it's a good atmosphere there.
Okay, take us to the next one. Who was the second one you mentioned, if you remember? Was it Virginia Tech, you said? Or Maryland, you said? Who was it?
It was Virginia Tech.
Virginia Tech. Talking about the Hokies. It's in-state school. They've been on you for a long while, haven't they?
Mm-hmm. Definitely have. They're a good school also. Coach Mines, he's a good wide receiver coach, so I definitely see myself there.
Yeah, I know Coach Pry, Coach Mines and stuff have made you a big priority. And is playing in-state or close to home, is that something that could matter to you?
Yeah, that's one thing that I really look into. That's really helpful for me and my family also.
How about the Terps? Give us the feel on them.
Maryland, that's a good school, great wide receivers coming from that school, so they definitely have development in wide receivers. So it's definitely a good place to be.
You mentioned receivers. I mean, they've got guys like Stephon Diggs in the league. When you see that they have people that get produced in the NFLs, does that kind of perk your eyes up a little more?
Definitely.
Give us the other 3 now. You mentioned those 3. Syracuse was one of them you talked about. Tell us about the Orange, if you can. Have you been there?
Yeah, I've been there. I see Coach Brown, the head coach. It looks like he really turned around that program. That's one reason I'm really interested in that program. Mm-hmm. I can see myself playing. I can see how they impact their wide receivers there. I can be there and watching. Yeah.
Have you talked to Big Moss from Lake Taylor? Elijah Washington's going there or not yet?
We played against. I ain't talked to him yet.
Okay. And then there's 1 or 2 more schools in that top 6. Who else leaving out?
South Carolina.
South Carolina. They're getting some 7x7 guys lately. I know Fred Johnson from Maury. Mm-hmm. What's it like with the Gamecocks? I know Shane Beamer's talking about trying to invade the 7x7 even more.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I definitely like their game style. I like their game style, and I like the place. I haven't visited there yet.
Okay.
I would like to.
You plan to visit them? Okay.
Yeah,
and then who else is that? Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
The Volunteers is SEC football. What do you know about them? What do you want to learn about them?
Really just more getting into it, like more about the program. I haven't visited there either, so I need to go there and really see how they practice and see their wide receivers and their coaching and how they coach and things like that.
A couple more lecture run. Now, you said you haven't visited a couple places. What's next step for you? You mentioned you get in the top 6 here. You want to take some more official visits before you decide what's the next steps for you?
Yeah, I'm going to take my official visits and go from there, really take my officials and get ready to commit.
You want to decide before your senior season? Okay, and then last two for you, what's going to matter to you when you make that decision? What are going to be the key factors in your process?
Really, somewhere I can see myself getting developed the best and really see myself playing just in a good environment, somewhere I want to be at, with good coaching staff and someone that's really just home for me.
Sure. And for Matthew Outten, lastly, the development you mentioned is a big deal for you. Everybody wants to win Player of the Year, get all state championship. I'm sure those are goals for you. But this coming year, in terms of leaving a legacy on the football field on Friday nights before you go to college, what do you want people to kind of take away from watching this year, and what's kind of your goals and your checklist, if you will?
The best athlete in the state, really. Just fun to watch, y'all. It's really, it's really a good place here, and I'm really going to show out this year, and I'm really going for the top yards this year, top receiving catches, going for it all.
And then lastly, it kind of hurt you guys to get going to playoffs, right? I mean, that leave a little sour taste in your mouth.
Yeah, that was a big impact last year. That's why we're coming this year. We really got to
watch out for the Greyhounds and beyond. Matthew Outten, thank you so much.
It is 757 Saturday Sports Talk as we watch Ed just chilling on the couch after hearing from the best first name player in the state, Matthew Outten. He's one of the best players in the state. He's got the best first name, as I told him. Got an interesting top list of schools there that he's choosing from. It is 757 Saturday Sports Talk. What are you shaking your head at? No.
Virginia Tech. Write it down.
Really?
That's where he's going.
Okay, so all you Penn State fans get mad at Ed Young. All you Maryland fans get mad at Ed. All you Syracuse fans get mad.
I want to steal the
You're
youngsters.
saying he is a done deal to the Hokies is what you're saying.
I got a feeling.
Is that a Charles Barkley guarantee?
No. I've learned with youngsters under the age.
He guaranteed the other night the Wolves would blow out the Mavericks and went the other way around.
Yeah, I'm not guaranteeing nothing with youngsters because they don't even know what they're doing half the time.
All right, as we sign off on this edition of the show, we crank up the Feeding the Ducks. Oh, we love Feeding the Ducks. We love Feeding the Ducks. It's time now for our spelling bee with Ed Young versus Ed Young. All right, 5 sports names. We'll see if Ed can spell them. I'm going to say them verbally, and then I'll put it up on the screen, the name. Are you ready for the first one here, sir?
Give me the names ahead of time so I can realize.
No, it didn't work that way. I'm going to give you the first one. You remember this guy? He played defensive line for the Lions and the Rams. Ndamukong Suh. Ndamukong Suh. Spell that for me. Don't Google it. You have 10 seconds.
Pencil.
Write it down. Yeah, pencil. He's going to write it down here. Ndamukong Suh. Would you like the origin?
Please use it in a sentence.
Ndamukong Suh could sack Ed Young 20 times in a football game if he played quarterback. Ndamukong Suh. A boy named Sue. Ndamukong Suh. Come on, start spelling it.
Okay, let me do the last part. S-U.
That's incorrect. There's not a letter.
Oh, man.
The first 2 letters, right? What's the third letter in his last name?
A.
A? That's
Not
incorrect.
E.
No, it's not
E.
A. Okay, but give us the first name now.
Ndamukong would be E-M. I'm already wrong.
He's done. Ndamukong Suh.
Oh, my God.
Ndamukong Suh is how you say it. It's pronounced Ndamukong Suh. All right, second name. We'll give you a basketball name.
I had the Kong in the bottom of the first.
It's all right. It's all right. It's all right. We'll give you a second name. You ready? Here we go. Here we go. We put the Feeding the Ducks back on. Giannis Antetokounmpo. Giannis Antetokounmpo, otherwise known as the Greek Freak from the Milwaukee Bucks. Giannis Antetokounmpo. Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Greek Freak. I think it's.
You can't spell his first name?
Giannis.
Oh, gosh. He's going to butcher this one. And I'm going to get the last name. There's no chance you get the last name.
Giannis.
Buzzer sounds. There it is on the screen, folks. Giannis, Giannis. Antetokounmpo is Antetokounmpo. All right, next up. Baseball player. You remember this guy? He was a pitcher. I bet Tim Kurkjian could spell it because he's probably written it numerous times. Jared Saltalamacchia.
He's not a pitcher. It's a catcher.
Oh, is he a catcher? I thought he was a pitcher.
No.
Is he really a catcher?
For the Boston Red Sox. That's the one I won at the Norfolk Tides trivia contest.
He's a catcher. That's a bad job by me. He is a catcher. Oh, that's a bad job by me. Oh, wow. You're right. He is a catcher. I thought he was a pitcher.
No, you don't know your stuff.
Bad job. I know. I do know my stuff. He's married to Ashley.
Sammentalkaie.
No, that's not how you spell it. Jared Saltalamacchia. Jared, Jarrod, Saltalamacchia, Saltalamacchia. All right, we got two more names here.
He won me a pizza from that place.
Yeah, football time now. Here we go. Not Chicho's, it was somewhere else. Tua Tagovailoa, the quarterback of the Miami Dolphins, who throws passes to Tyreek Hill, who came to the Sportsplex last year, and he might come again. You never know. Tua. You got that? Hey, first one you got right. How about the last name?
Don't rush.
Former Alabama quarterback. I bet Chuck Thornton back there, if he's watching, he can get it right. I know Chuck can get it right.
Chuck calls him Tui. He calls him Tui.
Doesn't call him Tui. He can get it right. I could have given you Marquise Tuiasosopo, but I was nice. Tua is correct for the first name. How about Tagovailoa?
Tongueulova.
You put tongue in there. There it is. Tua Tagovailoa. Tagovailoa. Tua Tagovailoa. And here's the last one. I got to give Ed one that he can get right because I can't let him go 0 for 5 like Barkley on who he played for with the guys at Turner. How about this one? Former quarterback of the Green Bay Packers. Give us Brett Favre. Come on, Ed. You can get Brett Favre right. Come on.
BRETTFAVRE.
There you go. Ding, ding. You got it right.
Once again,
105. You got one at 20%. You're batting 200, which means you can play for the Mets. I mean, my D-backs these days. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the show.
Hey, I'm working on a Frank the Tank impersonation.
I bet you are.
This week.
I bet you have. I bet you have. That's going to do it for this show. We'll talk to you next week here as we get the June swoon going right here on Cova Sports TV. Like, share, and subscribe. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors' friends, and your friends' neighbors, and enjoy your sports weekend, everyone. See you later.
Be safe.